Welcome to our webinar today. I'm Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts, and our webinar today is Preparing to Build Master Planning, Part 2, Planning and Performance. Part 1 dealt with the basics of master planning and answered the basic questions about what is master planning, who does master planning, what is required, when is it done, where is it done, what does it produce, what will it do for your church. Today we're going to talk about it where you are planning to move ahead and you're hiring an architect and you want to plan so that you can give them the information they need and they can perform and work together with you to produce a master plan. There are 5 phases in any church construction project: preparation, planning, design, construction, and then facility management, caring for what you've built. Today we're going to talk about preparation and planning stages in dealing with planning and performance of the master plan. There is a guiding principle that I like to put in front of you as we go through this so you can understand why we spend so much time dealing with the preparation stage and the planning stage. And that is, proper preparation, planning, and processes prevent pitiful performance. And so we want you to understand at the start of any project, you're going to have control of your decision making and you're going to have control of your money. As you can see by the chart in front of you, the project timeline, at the front end of your project, when you're preparing to build and you're putting together your building committee and your subcommittees and work groups, and then you get into the planning phase where you hire your industry professionals and make a lot of decisions about how you're going to proceed, you have control and it's costing you very little money. But once you begin to hire and release the architect, engineers, a contractor, and other industry professionals who are on your building team to carry out your decisions, now you start spending money. And as you can see, by the time you get to construction, you're releasing a lot of money to make this happen. So as we go through this, we want you to understand in planning and then performing the master plan, here is an approach to help you successfully complete that task. First, let's review for a moment, what is a master plan? A completed master plan is a drawing that depicts the outlay of the land, traffic, ingress and egress, that means coming in and going out, and a schematic representation of the existing buildings, that means the floor plan, and the location of future buildings, along with the ball fields and picnic areas and other outside activity centers. It should show the planned development of every square foot of your property. The master plan should not only be in picture form, but also in written form, stating the steps that will be taken in each phase as you look down the road to accomplish the plan, and which phase will be first, second, third, fourth, and so forth. The plan should be revisited each time you intend to build. It is a future plan to help you make a good decision in this next phase. It is an exercise that is well worth your time, energy, and resources that you put into it. And so, here's the first step. You're doing research and development, and the architect, when you engage with him, is going to ask you for information. He's going to ask you for data about yourself, your property, your personnel, your vision, your ministry design, and a group of other things, projections of growth, that you're going to have to gather the information, evaluate that information as to its value, process it, put it into a system or a format that the architect can use, and you're going to have to deliver it into their hands. So what we're going to go through right now is what data do you have to gather, evaluate, process, and deliver. And so here is a summary of a master plan. Let me give to you first a ministry design explanation And there is on your screen in front of you, if you were to scroll down while listening to this webinar, and you may have already discovered it as you're taking and going through the different webinar videos, the recorded videos on our Ministry Design Training website. But you're going to see a Ministry Design questionnaire. And so what we mean by Ministry Design is your vision, mission, and values and your strategic plan and what you're going to tell the architect about yourself and how you function, why you function, your philosophy of ministry. It's everything that talks about who you are at your core, your context, your calling, and your concept. They may ask you 3 basic questions that you'll drill down into when explaining to them your ministry design. They may ask you, what is your church passionate about? What is your church really good at? And what can your church be successful at? So you're trying to explain to them how you're put together and why. So they can kind of dissect you and determine as they research and drill into who you are in your personnel and your property and your programs and your processes, in your philosophy of ministry, in your future, the destination where you see your church going or becoming, and all those things are needed in order for them to go through first phase, second phase, third phase, fourth phase, fifth phase. So as we talk about this, you want to give them programming information that will help them. And so in doing this, you're going to talk about a program study. You're going to talk about property evaluation, the bandwidth. You're going to talk about your ministry design and your vision. And you're going to balance together several things when talking with them. You're thinking all of this ahead of time, putting it into written form, going to communicate it with them, review it. You're going to question and answer them so that they understand what you've said and don't misunderstand who you are. But you're going to balance together your needs and your capabilities, your wishes and your wallet, and the reality and your dreams. In order to help them understand the big picture of your future, they need to know what is mission critical, your needs. What's the bandwidth of your ministry? They're going to help you understand the bandwidth of your property. But what's the bandwidth of your ministry? The capacity and capabilities of your ministry. All of us have a wish list, a dream list, but our wallet has to pay for it. And so there's a balancing act that is going on through the master planning process to help you master your own church so you can communicate your ministry and who you are to the architects. Then we're going to be talking about the planning tools. So at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a list of tools to help you as we go through talking about what is the data that you're collecting, what is the answer that you're going to have to give, what is involved. Now, here are some of the master plan development documents that you're going to have to be able to use or would be wise to use in order to help you prepare to go through the planning and then master planning of your property. Well, at the bottom of that sheet, you can look at it now or later as we talk, you've got a ministry design questionnaire where we ask questions about your code. What is the DNA of your church, your congregation? Who are you? At your essence, who are you? Your ethos. At your core, who are you? Why do you do ministry? Where is your ministry headed? What are the defining characteristics and collective talents of your ministry, of your congregation? How would you summarize it? If you had to say it in a paragraph, in a sentence, how would you summarize who you are at your very core? Secondly is your context. Where are you? Define and describe the community around you. Who's in your community? What are they like? How can they be reached? What challenges are they facing? What key problems need to be solved? Where might they be receptive to your help and to the gospel as you interact with them? How can you have the biggest impact on their lives? What about your calling as a church? Now, we know that our calling is the Great Commission. I summarize it as making disciples. But what is God calling your church to do? How are you going to flesh out, to live out your calling as a church? Who is your church's ministry focus and why? Where is God calling you to do your ministry? How will spiritual transformation take place? Where, when, how, who, what? How will we know you are successfully completing God's calling on your church? What will it look like? How will you measure whether or not you're fulfilling your calling? That's important. Don't waste our lives. We mean to have eternal impact with our lives. And then your concept. What is your game plan for obeying God's calling? How do you carry out his calling in your life? How are you going to do it? What do you do? What can you do to give you the easiest avenue to people in your community? Is it recreational, charity, community service, a third place, events and activities? How can you best connect with the people you are called to reach? How can you create a ministry design that enhances your efforts to obey and accomplish the Great Commission? So as you go through these, it may get your juices flowing where you'll ask yourself some more questions to drill down into your ministry and how it's designed and put together. Take time to do this. Here's why. The better the design team can understand what kind of church you are, what kind of people you are, what kind of area you're ministering in, who you're going to seek to reach, whether you say, well, it's everyone, or we're really targeting this group and feel like we're called to reach them. You have to be able to articulate this with clarity and conciseness so that they can understand it and produce a design that works and grooves together, blends together, weaves together with who you are and where you're headed. Now, there's another document that is there on the website for you, and it's Community Intelligence. In it, I've asked you 12 questions. What problem would you solve that would have the greatest impact on people's lives in your community? Are there forces of darkness that are gripping a certain group of people with a spiritual stronghold in your community? How do you describe the people? And it's a shame that the ones in your community and the average community, I'm afraid, that know the community better than anyone else is the Better Business Bureau or the Chamber of Commerce or a commercial retail endeavor that studies people to look at their buying patterns like Walmart or Sears or Macy's or Belk's, and on you go, Target and all the other companies. And it ought to be the churches, because we're told to be, God was going to make us fishers of men, then we need to study fish in their environment. You got it? Can I move on from that? And so here's a questionnaire to help you answer this information so you can communicate it to your design team. Then I've given you a preparation and planning exercise for a church building program. And I talk in it about several things. Creating a long-term vision for your campus. I'm going to give you in a moment a questionnaire that I've given to you for you to go through. And you answer those 72, 74 questions, pull together the exercise, and it will help explain your vision for your ministry on your campus. And so you perform a series of research exercises that will help you. Feasibility studies, demographic studies, psychographic studies. This is the collection of data that shows how they think, their lifestyle, their worldview. Ethnographic studies showing who's in your church, but also who is attending the churches in your community. That will help you to know that information, in my thinking as a ministry coach. Healthy church studies, programming studies, budgeting development. All of these different things are things that you can prepare and be moving toward for land, code, and cost analysis to help you give them the right information. Then there's a master plan process, conceptual and strategic, that you go through both conceptually what it's going to look like and strategically thinking through in detail as your ministry grows in the way that you think it's going to grow and develop as you project out from today, from this time period, into the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And you'll have to revisit it and make adjustments and monitor how you're growing, because that may change. But when you do this, you want to look at it strategically in your planning and conceptually in your planning. And so again, on this document that you can download and study through it, we're talking about your mission, vision, values, and your plan, your financial ability, and the needs that you've got, what's mission critical, and there are some affordability and design rules. So let me give you one. There must be a balance between what the church builds and what the church can afford. It's a rule. There's no sense designing even a master plan larger than bigger than what you can afford, than what your wallet can afford. And so you've heard the expression, maybe your parents used it with you used it with your kids, are your eyes bigger than your stomach? Well, you've got to make certain that you're counting the cost as you go through this. So if you can't build everything you want in the first phase, then you bump certain things by setting priorities to the second phase. But you've got to go through this exercise conceptually and strategically to help you do three things. A needs analysis determines how the ministry space should be designed. A financial analysis determines the size of the project. And then you have to balance together number one and number two. And you do that from the outset so that you can stay within the budget to build your building. There'll be a temptation for you not to do that. An architect, when you engage with him, and the one that you select or the firm that you select will take you through these exercises and others, and they'll have a way that they will help you do it, because not everybody works the same. And so this is helping you get preliminary information together so that you don't look like you're just on square one in Monopoly, instead of being down the board, because you've been planning and preparing for them. From saving your money and budgeting for this and getting your people up to speed with where you're headed and what you're doing, forming your teams in your church, knowing who and how and when you're going to engage with the industry professionals. You're doing all this. Then I had referred to a long-term vision for your campus. In this, I've broken down into multiple categories: questions about your campus, your weekend services, your midweek services, your special events, economics, technology, education, your facilities, special ministries you may have, programming and practices and your philosophy of them, and you go through and answer these questions, take the miscellaneous notes, and put together a vision statement for your campus by answering those questions. And it will help the architect not make a mistake by putting things into the first draft that aren't important to you, or that you were thinking would go in the second, third, or fourth phase down the road a number of years. Then you need to perfect a programming exercise. Again, I've given you a good start, and you can contextualize it to your setting to help you collect the 24/7, 365-day use of your property. From projected growth of every ministry in your church to every activity, program, and project that you do during the year, meaning monthly, quarterly, annually, weekly, or daily, that you're explaining to them what you're doing, how you're doing it, when you're doing it, who is doing it, and the whole gamut, so they'll understand your function and the form that you'll need. Then we've given to you an example, and thanks to Dr. Warner Lum at Maranatha Baptist Bible College, that when he was with me on my building committee 12 years ago at Emmanuel, where I pastored, that he put together this programming exercise so that you kind of use it as a checklist. There's 17 pages, and we'll try and keep it updated to today's ministry. But here's a checklist for you to go through to help you find something that you've forgotten to tell the architect about that is a need. Let me give you an example. Storage. If you have a day school or something that's going on during the week, Monday through Friday or on Saturdays, and you need special space for a particular activity or need, that you want to check it off. And that programming example will help you do that. Then I've given you a ministry space rule of thumb. So the ministry space rules of thumb is a quick chart, and it explains to you what you need for each age group, and then it explains to you what you need for each function. So as you go through this, it will help you get a grasp on what is happening and what needs to happen, so you can know approximately how much space he is going to be projecting out. It can help us, if I'm helping you navigate through this, give some kind of budget analysis before we ever hire the architect as to how many square feet we think this is going to require of your ministry. But it will give you information. You may have a question, well, how many square feet does an infant need? Does a toddler need? Does a K4 and K5 student need? Does a middle school student need? Does an adult need? If we're going to have round tables instead of rectangle tables in our Family Life Center, our fellowship hall, and our gym to serve meals, is there a difference in the square footage it requires? And the answer to that is yes. How much of what we're designing needs to be for circulation and storage? And you begin to get an idea ahead of time what you're really headed for as you go through the ministry design process. You're leading and managing as the lead pastor, as the senior pastor, as the chairman of the building committee. You're doing this so that you're up to speed and can be a good, strong partner for the industry professionals that come on board with you, that you select to work with. Other master plan development documents, feasibility studies. When I say that, do you understand what I mean? Well, a feasibility study should help you and your congregation understand what should be built to meet the vision and needs of the ministry. A feasibility study should balance your ministry needs against financial ability. Once needs are clarified, the ministry plan is developed based on your financial ability and other constraints that you may have with your property and so forth. A feasibility study is the collection and analysis of information about your current campus and facilities, your current site and facilities, your ministries, both present and future, the demographics of your congregation and community, and your projected growth for each of your ministries, both from the past to project into the future. And so the study defines the needs of the ministry with respect to buildings and balances those needs against your financial capability of your congregation. A feasibility study will help you create the clarity and unity of vision that should be the driving force behind any decisions made by your church. The feasibility study should tell you what you should build and what you can afford to build within your ministry plan. The information is then provided to the design team to help them understand the needs of the church. What is your biblical basis for doing this? Well, let's just pick one. Luke 14, verse 28 to 32. It admonishes us to plan well so we can spend wisely the resources entrusted to us by the Lord. Proverbs tells us that counsel establishes every purpose and that the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. A great deal of money is spent every year foolishly wasted by churches pursuing building plans that they'll never be able to afford or can't afford. A feasibility study is a good use of your time, and as we're able to, we're going to take and develop a software program for you to do a feasibility study. We just haven't gotten that done yet as to date, but it's coming, Lord willing. There's a quick affordability tool that deals with your borrowing capabilities, your fundraising capabilities, your cash on hand and what you can liquidate. Then you take and subtract your debt, and you come up with a total affordability. Now, just because you could afford $1 million project doesn't mean that God wants you to spend that much. But this is a help right on the front end of your project to help you be able to determine how much you can afford. Just like going to buy a car or a house, you have to pass with a realtor. He wants your finances so he can help you stay within your budget and not oversell you on something that's going to strain you. A ministry team and a navigator like myself is concerned about that. We want you to succeed, and part of that is the discipline that comes with looking at what you can afford and how much of that you could spend. Then we give you a quick cost overview tool that is a 6-part, 7-part budget broken down so that you can look and begin to give a guesstimate as to what within a range your building and site and design work and your furnishings, fixtures, and equipment and pre-construction cost, perhaps the purchase of new land or additional land, or your contingency funds you have to set aside. You have to orchestrate and coordinate all of that together to make certain that it's within your budget. And so in these tools, we're giving you tools to help you prepare to successfully engage with and work with as a team, partnering with the industry professionals who do this all the time. This is their calling. This is their career. This is what they do. Well, we want to catch the church and up with the design team so that you move smoothly along without any hiccups, without stalling out. Then there's something you can do that I call a research land and code analysis. I've given you a list of questions of 24 questions, everything for, are there any deed restrictions, any land analysis restrictions, setback requirements, wetlands or floodplain, subsoil conditions, hazardous materials, protected wildlife. There's 24 different questions there that you ought to have the architect research in your design team, maybe a civil engineer, an architect, another engineer, and make certain that you have confirmed and answered these questions to the best of your ability. Just recently I was talking with a close friend who is an architect that we have worked together doing churches through the years, and he was telling me about a project that he worked on where the local building authorities, the government, told them that they were going to be bringing utilities right up to the church, and they assured them in multiple interviews with the local authorities. And what happened, they eventually did bring those utilities that they needed, and I forget which one it was, up to the campus. But it wasn't until a few years later their timeline was off. That's not speaking bad about the local government authority. They just didn't meet their time requirement that they thought it was going to happen. There might have been things that were completely out of their control. But in doing that, there are risks that are involved, and you're trying to remove as much as you can any, what I call snakes in the grass, that when you walk through tall grass, they rise up and bite you. And so you're doing some due diligence through this research. You want to get a minimum survey requirement. It needs to be a recent one, and I've given you the requirements here as given to me by industry professionals that tell us what is going to be required, because the engineers and the architect, everyone, the industry professionals, are working off the verification and confirmation of your property and its topographical, the elevation of land as it changes throughout your property, your boundary survey, the location of utilities, of buildings, both above ground and below ground, and any other information that you can get. Well, when you start your program and you go through each one of these, they're going to be asking you for a recent survey, topographical and boundary, and this tells you what you should be doing. It will give you guidelines. So let's move into the design phase and talk about it for a moment. You've gone through and collected the data. You've evaluated it. You've processed it. And now you're ready to deliver it to the industry professionals. And so we're going to talk about the master plan performance. First, what does the design phase require? Well, it requires communication between everyone. Between your team at church, your in-house leadership teams, your building committee, your subcommittees, your work groups. It requires massive communication. So back to your organization, you'd better set up reporting and communication lines and use technology and enable you to move carefully, cautiously, but correctly through collecting all the data and then continue to process your mind and heart and information with the industry professionals. So it requires communication. And a good architect that God has put in your pathway to use, that you've selected, should be able to communicate clearly with you. They're not mind readers most times. If you don't tell them, then they're guessing. They're observing and guessing. Tell them. Next, it requires collaboration. Collaboration together. This is a partnership where they're coming in and developing a relationship with you, and they're trying to get to know you. It may be while they want to spend time with you, come attend your services, go to any special events, interview some of your folks, and it all depends on the architect and how they approach it. But they're trying to collaborate with you and communicate with you. Thirdly, it requires communication. Communication of your function, how you do ministry. Round tables, rectangle tables. In your fellowship hall, in your children's area. Are you going to set them on a floor mat and teach them? Are you going to put chairs in a circle around a desk against the wall? Classroom style? Are you going to move them around and take them from one area to another with a different style of teaching? Are you going to have a craft time? You know, all these different things. You've got to explain 24/7 how you function, leave no detail out, so they can understand how you do ministry. From how you baptize and preach and music and invitation if you give one, and your guest services, how they park and how you receive them and get them in, how you educate, fellowship, recreate, how you gather and spend time together, how you make disciples. You want to communicate your function because they're going to have to coordinate your function with the form of the building. And that comes down to the fashion. So let's say that you're on a property that is 50 years old and you've got 3 buildings that have been built, either connected or disconnected, and now you're going to go build a new auditorium or a new educational building because you've experienced growth or you're just now getting to it. And you want to blend together the old with the new. Well, you've got to communicate if you want to bring the old up to par with the new, or if you want to bring the new to look like the old. You know, are you going to do some kind of compromise within that? So there's not just the form, but there's the fashion, and then there's the furnishings. Someone, and my wife being an interior designer, walks churches through every cubic square inch of their facility and how they do ministry to help them determine where they want an outlet, a light switch, a cabinet, a wall cabinet, where they want a closet, where they might want the window, where they want the cribs, what kind of chairs are they going to want and use, and on and on and on, the lighting. And candle powers, is it going to be at what level in order to give you the right lighting? Do they need to be dimmers? Do you need an intercom system? Do you need something else with IT, with information technology in order to help you teach? Are you going to want PowerPoint projectors and screens in every classroom? Are you going to want TV monitors up throughout the hallways? Are you going to want to build in those into the wall or have them freestanding or attached to the wall? On and on and on you go. The furnishings, fixtures, and equipment that you use, and that's before we ever get to recreation or kitchen, that you've got to answer and coordinate all of this together within your funds and directed by your future. If you know what I'm talking about, then go to our visioneering webinars that deals with the ministry design, and where we define what vision is, and it's dealing with the future, God's mind for his future destination for your ministry. You've got to give the design team direction as to where you're going and what your ministry is to look like when it gets there. So there is the process, and the point of destination, and there is the product, what you're going to look like as a church family. Continuing this thought, there has to be orchestration of your programming so that you're able to build something. Most spaces today, and I say most, I can't prove that, but it sure seems like it, most ministry space is multi-use, not dedicated and used for 50 minutes Sunday morning and not used again. So you've got to be able to coordinate all the programming with the professionals, the architect, the engineers, the contractors, the interior designers, the suppliers, and the other industry professionals. And you've got to orchestrate all of them together along with your congregation and all your ministry leaders and all of your staff and all of your governing group that is overseeing your ministry with you. It's your whole team and your congregation. You want them to look at the plans as they are a rough draft and begin helping to shape and mold that, and you're trying to think of every jot and tittle about your campus and your purpose for this first phase, this next phase, as to what you're going to put in it so that you have designed the right ministry space within your affordability, within your budget. And so you're trying to coordinate all these people together. You've got a team. Of course it requires communication. Of course it requires collaboration. Of course it requires coordination. And so they're going to orchestrate all this together. You would be wise to put together a team that is fit just for you, and you ought to enjoy working with them. You ought to like them, and they ought to be competent. And you ought to research and investigate to make certain that they are. As a navigator, I help you put together this team. And so in the first gateway of dealing with the master plan performance, you're going to put the development research in place. You're going to give it to the architect, communicate with him, hash it over, talk about it, not probably in just one meeting, but in a series of meetings. He might pull out a sheet of bumwad as you're going through this and put it over your current site plan, and he is drawing up some options for you, and you may go through 3 or 5 sheets of that. He might do it in his studio and come back to you in a meeting. Guys do it different ways. But you're putting that together. You're going to release the architect to design the master plan, and so you're working together, and he is going to take all this information and the communication and working together with you, and he's going to orchestrate and coordinate all the team together to design the master plan. He is going to consult with the civil engineer, the general contractor, and others. He is going to use the master plan research questions that are answered, and he's going to confirm those, and then he's going to wisely use his time. Here's what an architect may not want you to do, and that is he gets the information like a dripping faucet, and it's coming to him one drop at a time, and he goes back and works on it and comes back, and you say, oh, no, we meant to tell you, and he has to go back to the drawing board and do it again, and he may end up doing that over and over again. Why not put it together and spend time rehashing it and going through and meditating on it and letting it marinate, and certainly get the technical questions that I provided for you answered so that he can go at this and you're stewarding your time and resources and the design team's time and resources to produce the right master plan for your ministry at this point in time. You're going to finalize the master plan with multiple reviews. So lots of people, everyone's looking at it, trying to find anything that you've missed or gotten wrong that is a conflict of some way, and you're trying to coordinate, orchestrate your entire ministry together with this master plan. How are they going to use the existing buildings when you move into the new building? How are they going to use the new building when you get into it? It's a lot of work, takes a lot of time, and a lot of effort and energy. So you're going to deliver the master plan, and the contents of the master plan is a site plan, a floor plan, and elevations, and then documentation. that explains what you're doing and other questions that you've got. So you've documented your research and the master plan, not only in a word picture on a big board for a site plan and the first phase floor plan and elevations, but you're documenting this so that you can show your research and have full agreement. You want full exposure to and want to be transparent about what you're doing. You want to be able to see it. Now, there are presentation options that come along with the content that you've got. You can do just an artist rendering. So let's say that you were going to present the master plan in its entirety to your congregation and anybody in the community who'd want to see it. And you show them on a tripod or up on your projector. You throw out on your PowerPoint screen an artist rendering, the elevation, the floor plans, and the site plan, and you're showing your congregation and walking them through it. You can do a computer-generated 3D with music, voice, narration, and a film, a video that is showing them, and depending on how expensive, how much money you want to spend, you take them through and fly them around the outside, then fly them through a door, walk them through the lobby, through the auditorium, through the fellowship hall, the educational, the gathering space, your third place. You've got all these different things that you can show them to help people do this. It will help them understand and visualize the vision, God's preferred future for your ministry, if you show them a moving video brochure of what they're going to get. And the technology today is amazing what they can do. They can build this in 3D, and when they do your construction drawings, they're building it in Revit or another 3D design software that lets you peel back a sheetrock wall and look at the studs and the wiring and the conduit and the insulation and anything else that is there. It lets you look at inside of how a building is going to look in your auditorium and a crosscut as though you were walking through and looking at it. It helps them to see it. It puts the imagination on film, on the wall. So you can do this any number of ways as you deliver your master plan to both your community, your congregation, and then the government authorities, because they're going to have to give you permission, and you better go get permission. And so you have that gateway that you go through that you make certain that you're within budget as you do it. So the following must be in order, in place, before releasing the architect to develop the construction drawings. So you've got your master plan as best you know how. You have determined what you should spend, how much this building is going to be built within budget, what you're going to get in your priorities. You produce the presentation. You're ready to give it to your people, and now they've approved it, and you're going to release the architect and the engineers, his design team, to develop the construction drawings. That's the 60, 80, 100 pages of those 2x3 sheets, and perhaps a spec book that goes with it. You've got to confirm the budget, get a commitment letter from the lender, capital stewardship campaign pledges, so you know how much you're going to raise, and an estimate of what percentage of that you're going to actually get. You've got a cost estimated, perfected by maybe a general contractor that you've selected or a group that you've invited to help you, to give them a chance to bid on the project, depending upon the delivery system you select. And you could use the 3D estimating equipment from your design team and not involve a general contractor, and that's something that is newer, that is being perfected. But nonetheless, you want to come away with a perfected cost estimate, knowing what it's going to cost. Civil engineering and others, you want to get help to make certain that you have, as best as you can, estimated the cost. You want to take the Phase 1 floor plan and elevations that are approved by your congregation and your government local authorities that give you, the go-ahead that, yes, this fits within all our regulations and restrictions for you. It's why you were doing the research and in talking to people. So I'm Marshall Shannon, your pre-construction navigator. Here's our websites. Our company is Ministry Design Concepts. You can reach me at this address and at either one of these phone numbers. And it's our desire in this master plan package, in this phase of the pre-construction process, that you would understand master planning, what it is, and the process that you go through preparation and performance, and then I've included a design decision webinar to help you look at all the decisions you're going to have to make as you go through the master planning and construction drawings. Well, again, I hope this has been of help to you. Please don't hesitate to include at the bottom comments and questions, and each week or every other week we're going to provide for you a webinar where we answer your questions and have a time for you to talk back to us to get further help for you to prepare for your building project. Again, this is Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts. Thank you very much for your time.